Hey book friends, what's up? I am finally back. I took a little bit of a hiatus, month-ish off. I'm really just talking about books. I've been trying to figure out exactly what direction I see my YouTube channel going, how I want this to look and feel when you're here, as well as just like filming and just trying to figure out just little things I've been changing up. So that's why I've been a little MIA on here. I have missed talking about books. I'm gonna be wrapping up my May and my June reads. We have 12 books to wrap up between May and June. June, I know I've said it in a few other videos, but June actually was my best reading month. I had 2 5-star reads. May was an okay reading month. I had some good reads, really enjoyed them, but June truly has been the star of the year so far. Okay, enough talking about how good the months are. Let's just get into it. Started off May reading A Voice of the Ocean. This was a debut fantasy novel. I thought that it was really cute. I gave it about a 3.75 star rating. The feeling of the book is very The Little Mermaid meeting the Pirates of the Caribbean and coming together. The whole really first 20-ish% of the book is basically a Little Mermaid retelling. The characters are similar. The main female character, Celeste, is very Ariel coded, except different hair color. And one of our villains, I suppose that you could call her, is like Ursula, but if Ursula was beautiful. I think this book is a really good book if you're newer the YA fantasy romantasy space. Sometimes I feel like explaining fantasy versus romance fantasy versus fantasy with romance, it gets so confusing. I'm gonna try and do my best to kind of categorize those things. Celeste, the main female character, is a very emotionally driven character. She cries a lot. That might turn some people off. There's some points where I was like, okay girl, we gotta wrap it up a little bit with these tears. Let's have our emotional breakdown later after the scene. But at the same time, I'm like, I probably would react the same exact way as Celeste is right now if this was happening to me and these were the choices that I was forced to be making. So, and the ending also was kind of insane. My theory early on of what I thought was gonna happen, and then when I was reading the final few chapters, I was like, I did make a short a while ago that was like, fan art can't convince me to read a book, and then I showed fan art from this book. That fan art is literally what convinced me to read this book, and it's stunning. It's by Frostbite Studios. She always makes like the most amazing artwork. I then went on to read A Dance of Lies. This actually just came out in June, but I read this as an arc in May. This fantasy book is like nothing that I had read recently in the genre. I'm so used to female main characters being like assassins, warriors, fighting everyone, that it was nice to see strength shown in a way that was not physical. It was working through trauma and chronic illness, being in a prison for 2 years, trapped, and having to overcome that. A little synopsis on the book is that our female main character, she was a former royal dancer, but then she was accused wrongly of murdering one of his main key advisors, and so she was thrown into jail for 2 years. 2 years! She then gets pulled out of prison, and now she's being tasked with committing espionage at this huge event that's going on where all of the kingdoms are coming together. She has to basically be digging up dirt, planting seeds, trying to other people so she can gain her freedom. The dance scenes were so beautifully written. There was definitely some parts in the story where I was like, okay, who is the love interest? I don't really know. We have like 3 options. One of them is like, ew, I hope not. You just never fully know in these kinds of books. And then the other 2, I'm like, I like you both, but I'm also seeing some red flags. But there was definitely some information that you learn as the book goes on that makes you go, what? I then went on to read Shield of Sparrows, which I did make a reaction video to this, and I talked quite heavily about the story while I was reading it and at the very end doing a review on it. So I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about it, but I will say that I believe that this is a really great fantasy if you're newer to the genre. The world building is quite easy. Characters that are layered that you do start to like each and every single one of them. Go watch my reaction video if you'd like to hear more about it. If you're on the fence, hopefully that can also convince you to pick this book up, but I would recommend it. And then went on to read Starsight. This is the second book in the Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson. The series is my first introduction with Brandon Sanderson. I have the Mistborn series and the entire Cosmere on my must-read list, especially as a fantasy reader. I believe I've said it before, but I wanted to read Skyward first because it's not a part of the Cosmere at all, and I just wanted to get a good feeling for what Brandon Sanderson's writing style kind of is, because sometimes I think there's a certain headspace that you need to be in to read books that are styled the way his are. I'm enjoying the Skyward series, but like I just said, it's a series that I have to be in the right headspace for because it's so sci-fi centered and a lot of alien talk, almost like Guardians of the Galaxy a little bit, but a YA version of that. I like Spensa a lot more in this book than I did the first book. I feel like her character development has gotten a lot better and grown. I also just am a Spensa and Jerkface stan. I like them. I'm just gonna say that. You only get like the tiniest cameo with those two in the story, because the rest of the story follows Spensa as she goes to the Starsight base and what she learns there, how it's going to alter and change everything back for her home planet. Like I said, it was a lot, but in a good way. We'll be reading the third book probably next month, just so I can wrap up the first 3 books in this series that I believe are like the main chunk of the series, and then there's a couple other books. If you like aliens, you like sci-fi, and you like YA books, Skyward would be a good series for you. I then read According to Bristol Keats. I started out liking this book so much, and then it kind of just fell off near the end. Bums me out because I love Mary Pearson's other series, The Remnant Chronicles, so much. Literally, Dance of Thieves and Vow of Thieves are 2 of my favorite books that I read this year, easily. And I've been seeing According to Bristol Keats everywhere, and knowing that I like Mary Pearson's writing, I obviously wanted to go read more of her books. This is a more adult story that she has written, and it was so reminiscent of The Cruel Prince, but aged up. If you've been looking for something that's similar to The Cruel Prince, According to Bristol Keats might be a really great alternative for you. But like I said, I was really enjoying this book until we got to the end, and I just feel as if the choice that the main character made at the end took away from the impact of the story. I think I would have enjoyed going into book 2 with something not being resolved. Since I don't want to give too much of the story away because I try not to have spoilers within my reviews, but it is what knocked my book rating down. Maybe I was just being really critical because I was coming off of Starsight, which kind of put me into like a little book slumpy for a hot second. But yeah, I guess I just would have wanted to be left with tension and unease heading into the second book. And the second book comes out later this year. I'm sure so many of you have been seeing this book everywhere. And if you're a fan of Rachel Gillig and you read the Shepherd King duology, I'm sure that you've either already read this or it's high on your TBR to read this year. Look at the cover, the side with the sprayed edges. This is truly so beautiful. Apparently this is a photo shoot that was done. When I was looking at this, I guess I thought that it was other form of art that was created, but this was an actual photo shoot. So for those that didn't know, this was a picture that was actually captured and a shoot that was stylized for this cover. So cool. Makes me wonder what the second book cover is going to look like. I hope they do a similar style that they did here, so that way everything is cohesive. I just want to let it be known though that the main character has hair that's nothing like this. It was slightly deceiving. I think I might receive some backlash for this, but The Knight and the Moth was a book that I was so convinced was going to be 5 stars for me going into it, and it only ended up being 4. Let me just say, 4 stars is an incredible rating for a book that's still so good. For me, anything that's above a 3.5, I would recommend. I wanted this to be a 5-star rating so bad. There was just something about it that didn't push me over that 5-star edge. I kind of think that it was the ending. I know some people maybe really like the ending, but it was the type of ending that made me go, okay, this seems to be like the trend of the year. But it just wasn't my favorite ending. I really enjoy this book. Yes. Did I love that the female main character is strong? Like, let me throw down a grown man strong? Heck yes. Did I find myself comparing this book to One Dark Window? Yes, and I know that you shouldn't be doing that because they're completely separate books, completely separate series. But I found myself feeling that way. I don't know why I did that. That's like probably like the worst way to review a book. That's just a me thing. I love the gargoyle. He's basically my favorite character in this entire story. Bartholomew! Gargoyle though gives off major Olaf vibes. I love the gothic setting. I didn't realize how much I really enjoyed gothic setting books until I discovered Rachel Gillig, and now it's like I want to read more books that have a gothic setting. I haven't done like a long talking video in so long, my throat was actually just drying out. Anyways, back to reviews. Moving on to my June reads. The month started out with the Compelling Fates Saga. I came across this on Kindle Unlimited. I read the first 2 books. The third comes out August and the 4th comes out December. The entire series should be wrapped up by the end of the year. These books scratched an itch I didn't even know that I had. Just this feeling that I had about reading had me devouring the books. I'm actually kind of annoyed with myself for finishing them so quickly because I have to wait till August now to read the 3rd. On Kindle Unlimited, trying to get myself to read more books from Kindle Unlimited because I'm paying for the membership, and I told myself that if I don't start using it more, I'm just going to cancel it. I was not expecting that one of the first books that I decided to start doing that with was going to be one of my favorite series. It maybe sound a little hyperbolic if I say that this story was reminiscent of Throne of Glass for me. The characters were reminiscent to Throne of Glass. Not the actual plot. The plots are very, very different, but the actual characters, just the dynamic between them had me going, is this like Dorian? Is this like Rowan? Something about that. And even the side characters being really likable, you're rooting for them as well. well. I love stories that have so many characters and you're invested in the way that each of those characters are contributing to the story. With the first book, I was intrigued the entire time. The final 10 chapters, instantly downloading the second book to read because I was like, there's no way that that's how that just ended. And I was living in Delulu land. I'd say almost like 70-80% of the second book. I was like, no, I want this. And just when I thought I had every single character pinned down, you don't. Something just gets thrown into the mix, completely changes the game. Talk about a slow burn. Like I said, I literally cannot wait for the third book to come out. It's such an underhyped series, so I need more of you to pick this book up so I can actually talk about it with others. And then we have my first 5-star read of the month. It's an arc, so you're not even gonna be able to read this story for another couple weeks. I'm gonna call it now that this is probably gonna be one of the best YA books of the entire year. Is that a bold claim? Yes, but I stand on that claim. I'm standing on business. This book felt as if the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina and Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire created a book together, but it was a bit darker because it's set in purgatory. Every single character in this story is dead. Yeah. There's 6 point of views, so if you've read Six of Crow, you like that writing style with having so many different point of views that really tie the story together. That's exactly how Immortal Consequences is. Sometimes books with lots of point of views can get chaotic and overwhelming, but there's something about the way that this story was told is that everything works. Just like the soft spot that you develop for every single character in the story, no matter what they've done. Every character is like an onion, and as you read through the book, as you get through different chapters, it's like you're peeling back one layer of that onion. Then you get farther and you're peeling back more. The romance subplots that are in the story as well are just so touching, and you get a couple of them. As you read on and you figure out why things are the way they are, you're gonna be shocked. This book is set at an academy. It's in purgatory, as I mentioned, so all of them are dead. They're essentially tasked with helping souls from the ether move on to the other side. There's monsters that you have to fight, a romance subplot, a few romance subplots within the story, really layered and thought out characters. Add it to your list, thank me later. The Jasad Heir has been on my TBR for a while now. I want to start off by saying that the main female character and the main male character genuinely did like them, and their slow burn was everything. It's what I look for when I'm looking for a slow burn. That's what I want. I don't want to see it early in the book. I want to see it so far near the end of the book. About an enemies to lovers storyline. I do think that this book had all the ingredients for a 5-star read, but felt like it fell short in some aspects. Those books where I think that the second book is actually going to be substantially better than the first, and I'm going to really, really love. I'm saying that because I think that for me personally, it took about 40% of the book to really understand the world that I'm in. It might just be because a lot of the terms either really similar in name or they just had different titles that were interchangeable, and at times that felt a little confusing. But I felt so invested in the actual characters that I could look past some of those things and just continue to read the story and still enjoy it near the end. I finally have started the Prison Healer trilogy. Made a reaction video to this, and I've definitely stated that I'm nothing if not a dramatic reader, which you will find out if you watch that video. Those last 100 or 50-ish pages are insane. Like the final 25% of the book is what jumped it up that 1/2-star rating from a 4 to a 4.5. I had goosebumps on my arm. I don't want to say too much on it because I think that the Prison Healer is actually a book that you should go into pretty blind and not knowing a whole lot of what's going on. I think what you need to know is that it's in a prison setting, pretty obvious there by the title. There are trials within this book, which I know some people are like, no, trials. But it's nothing like other trials that you'll see in other books. There's just a different component to this one. The things that you find out during those trials and the in-between days leading up to the next set of trials is crazy. Go into it blind. So I'm not gonna spend a lot of time talking about it because I don't want to give away anything because the shock value is so worth it. And for my second 5-star read, drumroll please, A Requiem for Fallen Stars. If there's a couple books in this video that you've never seen before, it's probably because I've been going on a journey to read some of the most underhyped books this summer, and that is where those stories are getting pulled from. Requiem for Fallen Stars falls into that category. At the time of recording, which I'll include here, there's only 377 reviews on this book. And of those 377 star reviews, there's only like 170 written reviews. So when I say underhyped, I mean underhyped. And even though this already came out this year, there's other books, let's look at Silver Elite for instance, that came out in May and has like 40,000 reviews on it already. Requiem for Fallen Stars is so underhyped. This book did what some other popular books I wish would have done better. And one of those books might be an F and a W. I'm trying to figure out, where do I even start with A Requiem for Fallen Stars? The way that Hazel S. Wilkes writes is so beautiful. The way that she describes the world, there's no part of me that was questioning anything about this world. It all makes sense as you read, and you're getting a really good overview of the actual world before zoning in on specific areas and regions. I knew within the prologue that this was going to be a 5-star book, and it's just within the way that it is written, the world building, the magic system, the character depth that you go into. Everything was right up my alley. I love when a fantasy book leaves breadcrumbs throughout the story that is referencing old lore, ancient beings, fated situations. It's like one big puzzle. I love puzzles. Having to piece everything together when stuff really starts clicking in, it's like, what? I think that anytime a book is written in first person, a first person telling can be unreliable because you're looking at something that they are learning and you then are thinking that that is true because the character is thinking that it's true. So when the character is like, oh, this is how this pieces together, in the back of my head I was like, but what if it's not? The magic is really interesting. Every magic wielder gets a wielder mark. So think similar to Fourth Wing, how they are marked by their dragon. It's a little similar to how the magic system works here. You're gifted with a wielder mark depending on the magic that you can control and produce. So if you're a fire wielder or an elemental wielder, have a marking that's similar to what your elemental magic is. Illusionary magic, knowledge, shadow wielding, however big your mark is, shows how much strength and power you have within your magic. One of my favorite things within this book was an essence flower. I just feel like the concept of them is really cool. It's a flower that blooms based on the essence of your magic. Flower will look like how your magic essence looks. But say if your magic was somehow corrupted, or if in the future you were going to become corrupted, then your flower would be like poisonous looking. It'd be dark, maybe dripping with like a venom or something. And then those at the Magic Academy that this is set at would see that flower and know that you are not worthy of being admitted into this academy. Such a cool thing to create. Makes me want my own magic essence flower. The final scenes of this book were brutal and so layered. That is what I'm talking about, where it's like you think maybe you know why certain things are happening and who a certain character is, why they're reacting the way they are, but then you get these little snippets that make you go, I don't think everything that I've read is true. I think that some things are going to be uncovered later on in this series that are going to make me look back on things that I learned in this book and go, oh, that was misinterpreted. The downside about reading such a good book is the time that you have to wait in between reading the next book, and it's really sad. But this is definitely a book that I will be rereading, especially before the next book comes out, and probably double highlighting everything that I possibly can. Similar to some other books in this review, please go read this one so I have more people to talk with about it and I can theorize of what I think is going to happen. I need to talk with people. I need to talk with more people about this book. Wow, it feels so good to be back just talking about books again. I hope everybody's reading the last couple months has been incredible. I hope you've read some really, really great stories. I'd love to know some of your guys' 5-star reads if you've had any recently. Look forward to sharing more in the future. Hope everybody has an incredible July reading month, and I'll see you later.